headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.
Let's talk about knobs, because there's a knob tossing contest forced to cancel as it has grown too big. Organisers say they are having trouble getting hold of their knobs, which is, of course, a type of biscuit. In fact, someone got in touch a little bit earlier there from Dorset to say that they take their knobs very seriously down there. The annual Dorset Knob Throwing Challenge involves people tossing the county's traditional cookies across a field. Let's talk about this with Conor Tomlinson, who is a political commentator. Conor, you're very welcome to Talk Radio this afternoon for this very important and serious discussion. What are your thoughts on knobs?
Well, I'm just glad that for any story on knobs, you decided to call me Peter. I'm obviously
we think knob
me in mind as an expert.
We see the word knob, we immediately think ring Conor Tomlinson.
You've been talking to my girlfriend then. Yes, obviously this sort of is one of the quaint British traditions that is not dying out, but has been challenged under lockdown the last 2 years of social atomization. It means people can't go out and engage in traditions and sharing knobs with one another. Actually, I'm sure plenty of men and women during the time of lockdown might have been engaged in, practicing their throwing technique and tossing knobs, so now they get to go out and do it in a field with all their friends.
Yes, this contest, which is on the 1st of May, is in jeopardy because it's swollen in popularity in recent years, but it's finding them longer than anticipated. It was last held in 2019. An update on the website of the event said we had over 8,000 people attending in 2019, meaning it had reached such a size it simply cannot be run by a small village committee. We've looked at various options, but sadly couldn't make any of them work this year. It's not just about tossing your knob, obviously. It's about knob eating, knob painting, a knob and spoon race, guess the weight of the big knob, knob darts, and a knob pyramid as well. So lots going on there.
Fun for all the family, clearly.
Absolutely. Everybody getting involved in with their knobs there. We hope the event can return in years to come, but apparently there were multiple injuries at Cooper Hill's annual cheese rolling contest in Gloucestershire in England. Why do people do these kind of weird and wonderful things? It's a bit of tradition. The one actually in Derbyshire, I used to live in Derbyshire, they had some crazy football match that involved sort of everybody, and it sort of went on and on and on for a whole day or something, and loads of people got quite seriously injured at points. So these traditions do exist, Conor. What do you make of them?
Well, have you heard of the Atherstone ball game, Peter, by any chance?
No, I haven't. What's that?
So years and years ago, they decided to set up opposing towns, and they'd meet in the village of Atherstone, fill a ball with gold, and kick it back and forth. You were allowed to use any rule. The only rule was you couldn't kill anyone. And obviously, over the course of years,
excellent.
Yeah, well, so whoever held
good
the
rule
ball
for
by
life,
the end
really.
of the hour,
don't kill anyone.
Yeah. So, well, obviously, we've had magistrates just on the show, and I'm sure they'd echo that sentiment. The ball was filled with gold, and whoever would hold the ball at the end of the hour would get all the gold. In 2018, I believe there were so many injuries that they had to adjust the rules of the game, make the ball less heavy, take the gold out, make it so that you couldn't cause too much property damage, because it used to be the entire village would be the range, but now it's only kept on Main Street. But every year, there's ambulances on standby, because in 2019, some bloke got his ear torn off. I believe it's going ahead this year after 2 years of it not being done under lockdown. Why do
people take part in these things, honestly? I mean, if you're going to get your ear torn off, for goodness sake, flip it out.
Well, I think they've actually reduced the cash prize down to about £25 now. So you're basically punching each other in teams for a full hour with the possibility of grievous bodily harm for about 25 quid.
Would you do that?
Probably not, because my knees are bad enough as it is, so I don't fancy jumping in a mosh pit for a big inflatable ball. It kind of gives me PTSD of my school PE lessons.
I just don't understand why people do this. The other one, of course, which is there's one in Spain about throwing tomatoes at one another as well. I think that's in Catalonia. I mean, there are a number of things, obviously bullfighting and running of the bulls and so on, I absolutely can't condone because it's animal cruelty, and I'm against that completely. Yes. It's interesting, the throwing the tomatoes and so on. I mean, people just like to sort of let go a bit and do these kind of slightly crazy traditions from time to time, don't they? What do you think's behind that?
I think it's to do with the British sort of stuff. I believe there was a quote where it's often misattributed to Napoleon, where he says, England is an island of shopkeepers, and it means we're a sort of insular town like country where we're quite set in our ways and we keep the covenant of traditions from years past and pass them down to people. And even if they are a bit silly, even if they're a bit arbitrary, even if they're a bit farcical, like, knob tossing, I think there's something about it that allows you to connect to the past, particularly to a simpler time where there weren't as many smartphones, where there weren't as many interconnected political issues, where we aren't all glued to our screens and worried about what's happening halfway around the world to Ukraine. I mean, people forget, years ago when a war broke out, you wouldn't hear for months because it had to go on a decree by a ship. And so it meant a time where the community came together even to do something as ridiculous as rolling cheese down a hill. So I think as you get older, maybe it's still a bit strange, but I roll my eyes a little bit less at it and sometimes go, okay, well, what keeps people happy other than the Atherstone ball game, of course, where they're tearing each other's ears off. They're not hurting anyone. So.
Yes, indeed. It's all fun and games until someone's ear gets torn off. Connor Tomlinson, thank you.
Good talk. Hot talk.
Bold talk. Talk radio.
Listen on your smart speaker.
Watch it live on your smart TV.
The world headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.